Before I give my first impressions on the Pro Countlets, a short disclaimer. I bought these using my own money. No one has asked me to make this video and no one is paying me to do it. I'm also not a backer of the Gauntlets. I bought them as soon as they became available for the public audience. That being a couple of years ago. I received these gloves just this week and I have sparred for them for one evening. I think that's 4 or 5 sparring matches, 2 minutes each. As such, this is a first impressions video. This is not a review, so do not take it as such. My impression of these gloves probably will change over the next couple of months of using them. And I think that it's not really possible to make a proper review of a piece of sparring kit after just a single sparring session. So there's going to be a proper review on these gloves maybe next summer or something like that. This video is made out of 2 parts. The first part is the actual unboxing of these gloves and my first impressions right out of the box. And the second part is my first impressions after actually sparring with these gloves. I apologize for the bad audio quality in the unboxing part as I was in a bit of a hurry to actually get to the training and I forgot to turn on my proper microphone. At this point, it is probably also important to note that I only do longsword, so all of my experience with these gloves is from the point of view of a longsword fencer. Now to the unboxing. So, without further ado, let's get to unboxing. So I literally received this right now. I just came home with the package and here it is. So the package has taken quite a lot of damage, as you can see, but it seems to be packaged well enough that there's really not an issue. Okay, that goes off. I ordered these immediately when they came available for the public audience, so I'm not a backer. And there we go. And here's the first glove. There's a nice bag, I think. Yep, a bag which comes with the gloves and then a second glove. So, and a sticker. As said, the box had taken quite a lot of damage, but there's no damage whatsoever to these gloves, at least as far as I can see. And I have to say they feel quite hefty and they feel like they can take some damage. And like they feel dense, as usually HEMA gloves are quite a lot bigger, and I don't know, actually I can't remember what they weigh, so it might be that they are heavier or around the same weight, but these feel dense. So back when I ordered these, I think that the width of my hand was really at the maximum limits of what these are supposed to able to handle, and the length of my hand and the fingers was at the minimum level of what these can actually work with. So let's see. I've actually had the possibility to actually quickly test out the pre-production model like a couple of years back. During Fechter, Arto Fama let me try out his, and because those fit me, I felt comfortable actually ordering these. So, strap here, let's open it, and hand goes in. Yep, all the way. Let's see it there, and tighten up. Feels fine. So I've purchased one pair of 5-finger gloves before. Those were the resin gloves from Sparring Gloves, and I've tried out a couple of other pairs also. So I've never liked any 5-fingered gloves before, and that is because my grip is a handshake grip and I can't get my fingers close enough to each other, and then those haven't really given me a good feeling with that. Basically, it's always felt like I'd need to have my fingers too far from each other. With these, that hasn't been an issue, or that wasn't an issue when I tried this out. So they seem to fit, and I wouldn't say that these feel like they are too long for me. But again, I can only really tell after I actually spar with this. These feel like they fit nicely. Yeah, I think my hands are not too wide, so from here you can see that the shells come here, and my hand is really at the limits of what it allows you to have, but these are still fitting nicely. What I can feel right now is that my fingers try to come out from the tips here. I don't know how that is going to work when I actually fence with these. As you can see, I'm trying to push my hands further in. It's nice that these loops here allow you very easily to actually pull the gloves in further. This might be just that you have to use the gloves in, but we'll only see after some considerable use if this stays as an issue. But first impression, these feel rather nice in the hand. I have a feather here, broken one though, so let's see how. Yeah, I think I can get a proper grip on this, unlike with any other 5-fingered glove. So as you can see, my fingers are kinda staggered here, and that is the grip I like to use. This is also why I like to have hooved models of gloves when possible. So at least right now, it's easy to change between thumb grip and a handshake grip. Yeah. And these feel like they actually fit nicely. So, first impressions, not bad. I'll be leaving for training right about now, so I basically just go and switch my clothes and go to the sauna. And I'll try to get some sparring time in today, and then I'll make a second half for this video later this weekend. So, we'll get to that soon. So now, after I have sparred with these for a couple of rounds, here are my first impressions after actually using these. Firstly, about what these gloves came with. In the unboxing I already mentioned the bag, which is nice, a bit stretchy and soft. What was also inside the bag is a small pouch of extra pants. So if one of the pants on the gloves breaks, I have a replacement, and that is nice. So let's start from only wearing the gloves. So these gloves actually fit me just fine. Especially taken into account that I'm at the opposite sides of the size chart for the gloves in some aspects. So my hand width is basically at the very maximum of what these can hold, and my I can't remember if it's the whole length of my hand or just the finger length is at the very short end of what these are supposed to work with. So this might naturally be a different depending on your hand size. just to start this off, these feel nice in the hand, even when sparring, and there are not much big complaints about these. The one thing these tend to do is that they kinda try to slip off my hands towards my fingertips, which basically feels like my fingers don't really want to stay in these hard fingertip protectors. I didn't find this as much of an issue as I thought it would be after just trying them on without sparring. So the gloves have a nice loop here, which makes it easier to actually pull them further into your hands. And the loop is big enough that it fits the fits your finger even if it's in the glove. And I just used actually my crossguard to pull this down. And if you do it every now and then between exchanges, I didn't really find it to be that big of an issue. I have also heard the same complaint from many other people using these gloves, so know that this exists. The second thing is that these feel quite heavy. As I said in the unboxing section, I defined these as feeling rather dense, and this is definitely what they feel when actually using them. They are not heavy in the sense that they would tire my hands out or my arms out when fencing, but these definitely feel heavier than other gloves I have used. And I basically have experience with the basic sparring gloves, the what is it called? The 5-finger sparring glove model, the resin one, and then I've used for years the Leon Paul Hema gloves, which are basically just a hooved model of the Spes heavy glove. So those are my closest comparisons to these. Just for the weights, I think my kitchen scale says these are 490 grams each, so almost half a kilo a glove. And the Sparring Glove Special M size is listed at the Sparring Gloves webpage as being 745 grams a pair. So those would be roughly 370 grams each. So that's basically 100 grams difference. And that would kinda match with my feel of these. In a half a kilo glove, 100 grams is 20%, so that is quite a significant difference. Another thing I think might actually play into this feeling dense, as I said, is that the cuff is really short. So especially in the Leon Paul gloves I used, the cuff comes all the way here, so there's a bit more weight distribution towards your forearm. Here the cuff is short, so really all the weight is in your hand. What I've also noticed, and which still plays into the dense feeling of these gloves, is that there's quite a lot of material here over my knuckles, and I think this also plays part to the heavy feeling of the gloves. The thing is also that this might be an issue if you are using a sword with a complex handguard, such as a saber or a side sword or a rapier. With a longsword, of course, not an issue. Next to the probably the most important point, how does it feel to handle a sword with this? And again, a longsword. I did some first impressions of handling a sword with these in the unboxing, but now after actually fencing, because there can be quite a difference as there's going to be impacts on the weapon. The big thing some of my friends have actually complained is that because of the hard fingertips of these gloves, they say that they lose the touch and the feeling and the connection to the sword. I didn't find this to be an issue. Naturally, the fingertips are going to be still solid, but I really didn't find it to be an issue. I don't know why, because when I tried out the Sparring Glove Specials, that was an issue for me. But with these, not. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but I just didn't find it an issue. After a single sparring session, right now, these feel the best gloves I've used from the handling of a sword perspective. These allow me to use any grip I want, just the way I want it, and move my hands around, switch between thumb grip and handshake grip, and basically do whatever I would do if not wearing gloves. The biggest thing for me when it comes to gloves is that I probably have a bit of a different way of holding a sword to many people. So I don't have my fingers next to each other like this. So I have my fingers like this. This gives me a handshake grip where there is quite a large angle between the sword and my hand. This requires two things. One, I need to be able to have my fingers close to each other because I can't have a grip like this. I need to be able to bring my middle and index fingers next to each other, and I need to be able to bring my pinky and ring fingers next to each other. I also need to be able to spread the fingers out, so I have my 2 fingers here and 2 fingers here. This is the reason I prefer hooved gloves over the basic gauntlet type gloves. Now, this has been a horrible issue with any other 5-fingered glove I have worn. I have not been able to bring my fingers close enough to each other. This is why I sold my sparring glove specials after a single use. On the other hand, few of my friends have really loved those gloves. The same is true with the other new sparring glove 5 fingers. I tried them out from a friend and just couldn't use them. Not really an option for me. With these gloves, not an issue. I can bring my fingers close and I can stagger them just like I want to. These allow me to have a proper handshake grip on my sword, and that is what I've wanted from a 5-finger glove all the time, and now I have it. Another big thing is that these gloves allow me to have my hands back to back, like this. I want to have my dominant hand's wrist at the webbing between my thumb and index finger of my non-dominant hand. And these allow that enough, in my opinion. I'd say that the Leon Pauls I used allow me to bring my hands a bit closer because of the flexible cuff and the rather open area between the thumb and the index finger. On the other hand, these gloves have quite a lot of protection here above the thumb and at the knuckle, so that limits it a bit, but not too much. So it's not perfect, but completely working solution. And the reason is the insane amount of articulation there is in the hard parts of these gloves. Then how much protection do these offer? Let's start with the short conclusion. I think that these are completely usable in a longsword tournament. Not going to be an issue. So I sparred with these and I caught some rather heavy hits on my hands, and these are not the most comfortable glove from taking a hit point of view, but they are not the worst I have used. As a comparison, the Leon Pauls or Spes Heavies are way more comfortable when you are taking a hit. They absorb the hit better. On the other hand, especially after some usage and softening down, your basic sparring gloves are going to feel way worse. At least I've gone to some tournaments with sparring gloves which have been soft enough to be way worse than these, and I still thought that they were kinda adequate for a tournament. With these, based on my sparring experience, I would have no issues going to a tournament. The big thing these have over many swords is that the wrist has a rather significant amount of protection. So getting hit on the wrist bone here, I don't think this is going to be a problem with these gloves. For a comparison, basically every other glove I've had has the articulation at the wrist, so there is not that much protection there, and I have taken some quite painful hits to the wrists. With this, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Now, let's move from these to the concerns I have, as a few of the possible safety things are in my concerns list. So let's start with the smaller one. During one of the sparring bouts I had, my finger basically came out of the hard fingertip here, so it just kinda slipped, so that my finger, the tip of my finger was here, below the hard fingertip. Is the fix basically just after the exchange I pulled in the glove a bit as explained earlier, and that's it, fixed. And even though if I'd had taken a hit to my fingers at that point, I don't feel it would have been an issue, as at any point I really didn't have any hard parts directly over my finger. So even in the worst case, I'd say it's on par with many of the other gloves on the market. And in many ways, I'd say these are better in the sense of fingertip protection. Now, the biggest issue I came up with these is rather significant one. So this knuckle piece here popped up during one of the sparring matches. So it basically raised up so that here there was a significant gap. How this happened, I have no idea. But what technically happened is that here, between the fingers, there are these kind of J/U-shaped plastic pieces which are part of the knuckle protector, and they go through this fabric and down here and keep the knuckle piece in place. So one of them managed to come out of the hole, and because of that it pulled this whole thing up like this. Now, those plastic things like this were rather thin looking, and in this case the plastic piece was like one solid piece for a while, then there was a kind of thinner piece, and then the rest of it was just kind of flopping around. I don't know if this is actually by design or if that piece is basically partly broken. I just don't know. Fixing it was easy enough. Between the matches I just took a couple of minutes, took my gloves off, and then had to kinda get the piece back into the hole and just pushed in, and now the gloves are fine again. But my fear is that those pieces are going to break off, and if that happens, the knuckle piece is not going to be held in place anymore. To fix that, it would actually require replacing the whole knuckle piece, as those are, at least from what I could tell, integral to the knuckle piece, so they cannot be replaced. You have to replace whole this part here. And are there going to be replacement parts available? That's what CrossGuard is promising, that every piece is replaceable, but having the issue of not being able to deliver the gloves in the first place, and then what is going to be the price of those replacement parts. And this is basically where all of my concerns with these gloves boil down to. Like, having the extra straps provided with the gloves, yeah, if they break, not a big thing. Like, every glove I've used, they've had like rubber bands and stuff like that breaking, and I'm having to replace them, and sure, it's going to be a bit more work with these, but apparently there are proper online instructions on how to do it. The issue is that if any of the moldless plastic parts breaks, then we get into problems. A, can I get those parts? And if, as promised, I can, when? Because I waited 2 years for these gloves, and it would be very unfortunate to have to wait for a year for a replacement part. But we'll see that if I ever have need to actually order a replacement part. And the second is of course the big question, how well are these gloves going to hold? There's lots of articulation, lots of small plastic pieces and many things which can break. Will they? I don't know. And that is the reason why this is a first impressions video, not a review. So don't take this as a review. I'll give these something like a half a year or so of use or until they break and then make a proper review. These are €450 gloves, and if they hold up well enough that with some cheap replacement parts I can keep them going for 4 years or so, they might be a really good purchase, especially as they are very mobile, and from my first impressions they are a very comfortable glove to use in sparring. But if they break constantly, and if those replacement parts are going to be expensive, not a good thing. So that's my first impressions on these gloves. Right now I'm on the positive side, as these feel good, I can fence with them, they are not a disappointment from usability side, but taken into account that I had a major possible issue with one of the plastic parts during my first training session, we'll see. So, thank you for watching this video, and if you like content like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.